Hey, Queens, welcome back to the Grapevine Podcast, where we do girl talk, real talk, and faith without filter. Oh, girl, today we're talking about getting spicy. We're talking about toxic people. Yep, those people who drain your energy, steal your joy, and make your life way harder than it has to be. And honey, we're not just talking coworkers or acquaintances, we're talking anyone in your circle who doesn't respect your peace. I want you to go grab your favorite tea, coffee, or your beverage, maybe grab a blanket and cuddle up on the couch, or maybe you're listening in the car on the way to work or drop off the kids at school. But I want you to stick around because we're diving in deep. And trust me, by the end of this episode, you'll know exactly how to set holy boundaries like the queens you are. So I want you to picture this. Why are boundaries biblical? So let's get this straight. Setting boundaries is not, quote, unchristian. I repeat, it is not unchristian to set boundaries. The Bible literally tells us to guard our hearts. Proverbs 4:23 says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. I want you to think about this for just a sec. Your energy, your peace, your joy, those are all precious things. And you don't have to let just anyone walk all over them. Toxic people thrive on chaos, on manipulation, and on control. They can't handle your glow, so don't give them a chance to dim it. Girl, here is the truth bomb. People who truly love you and respect you will respect your boundaries. They won't try to argue with you or manipulate you or try to come to some irrational compromise. They will cheer you on. Toxic people, well, they'll whine, they'll guilt trip, or they'll try to convince you that you're being too harsh. Newsflash, boundaries are holy. A lot of the times, especially if you're like me and you're from the South, we are taught from a very young age that we are to respect our elders and that family is family. And unfortunately, I had to learn the hard way to set up boundaries with some of the people that I thought would never hurt me. Those can look like people from your coworkers, to your parents, to siblings, to your friends, and so on. A lot of the times too, especially growing up in the South and having really strong family bonds, we are used to the toxic behavior. We're used to just saying, okay, well, they're a family or they're our parents or they're our siblings and they love us. So we are supposed to just sweep it under the rug and move on. My parents growing up were so much older than, say, the other parents of children my age. And they come from a generation where you don't second guess your elders. You respect them. Family is always going to be family. Blood is blood. And at the end of the day, we sweep things under the rug, even if somebody used to hurt us, and we would let that go on. It's almost like they wanted us to live life and expect that nothing ever happened, and that our feelings and the things that happened to us and our memories really just didn't matter, or we were expected to act like they didn't exist. I'm going to give you a couple stories of a couple of very important people to me in my life that I had to cut off because they simply didn't respect my boundaries. Let me be real with you for just a quick sec. I had a friend, let's call her Jessica, who consistently brought drama into my life. No matter what it was about or who it was about, it almost seemed like every time I was around her, something was happening and she was involved in some kind of drama with someone, whether it was family or another friend, a coworker. But I literally got sick and tired of always hearing it. I felt like my energy was drained from her. I felt like I was always in a bad mood. And I always felt kind of like, oh my goodness, here we go again. I wonder what drama she's into today. And to be honest, at first, I tried to be the peacemaker, saying yes to every single call or text and hangout session. And girl, let me just tell you, the exhaustion and the mental drainage just doesn't even begin to cover it. I kept trying to spend time rationalizing to myself that she had been a friend of mine since we were literally in grade school. I kept making up excuses of people just don't understand her, or she's had a hard life. Nobody really knows what she goes through. And then I sat back and started listening and seeing the physical aspects that was happening to her, that a lot of it was she was bringing it on herself. Nobody ever wanted to be her friend. Every friend that she did get, she couldn't keep for long. And I found myself being secluded and really being the only person and friend that she had to go to. So one day I just prayed. I said, God, give me wisdom. Show me how to protect my peace. The next week, I started politely saying no. And you know what happened? She got upset. She got mad. She called me every name in the book. She told me that I was the last person on earth that she could ever think would leave her and not be her friend anymore. It just kept coming up with all kind of excuses and just attacks on me. Here's the crazy part and the kicker. My life became so much lighter. My energy returned and I had more space to walk boldly in my purpose. I found myself also feeling a lot less sick, a lot less stuck. I felt like I just had more pep in my step. When I tell you I felt like the literal world had been lifted off my shoulders, I can't even describe it. I also started noticing that the way that I thought about who I was as a person, my opportunities, my friends, my family, and everything else just simultaneously seemed to align. Although I felt like that deep down, I still had this undesirable calling to pray for her. I knew that what she had been through in her life would not be the defining moment of who she was. I started praying for clarity and direction and peace over her life. And I had to learn very quickly that just because I loved her and I wanted what was best for her, it did not mean that I had to subject myself to that kind of literal almost seems like mental torture. I learned that you are allowed to love from a distance, and that is okay. I also had to learn these things with my adopted mom as well. My dad passed away in April of 2015, and I have not seen or spoke to my adopted mom since then. She was always the type of person that would bring up your past or bring something I did up as a child that would not necessarily align with what she thought I should be doing. Nothing I seemed to ever be good enough or to be right, and I was always wrong. No matter what I seemed to do, no matter how much schooling or how much money or the kids or the person that I was married to ever seemed to be good enough. She was also my first bully, and I learned that as I got older and had children, that I did not want to subject my children to that kind of lifestyle. And I knew that I wanted to be a better version of a mother than what I had growing up. So I swore to myself that when I had my children, I would let my children see healthy relationships and healthy boundaries. Now, that doesn't always mean that just because you have a disagreement or you believe a different thing, or you may find yourself not really aligning with what they believe in, that you always have to cut yourself off from that person. But when it becomes an almost everyday intentional thing, I think it's time for you to set those holy boundaries. And the people that don't respect those are definitely the ones that you know you need to cut off. And it's been well over 10 years since my mom has tried to speak to me or reach out to me, and I've just kind of let it go and put it in God's hands. Over the course of the last decade with my mom, I realized very quickly that I was a believer and that my mom is not a believer. And even in the Bible, God tells us that people are in our life either for a moment or even for a season, but that not everyone that you ever meet is guaranteed to be in your life for a lifetime. You always meet someone, and that person is for you to either learn something from or for you to teach them something. So listen, what I'm trying to say is that toxic people don't get to dictate your joy. And sometimes cutting off negativity is the most spiritual thing that you can do. And I know you're probably wondering and asking, well, okay, how do I actually do this? The first thing that you have to do is identify toxic energy. I want you to make a list of people who consistently drain you or disrupt your peace. Face it honestly. Denial literally helps no one. This just doesn't have to be someone that is in your inner circle, like maybe even a spouse, a coworker, someone at church. But I want you to take actual time to think about this. Do the exercise because it's what helped me the most. It helped me identify the people that I really knew deep down were really toxic to me, and they didn't respect the boundaries that I had put in place. Number 2, I want you to define your boundaries clearly. I want you to decide what is okay and what is not. For example, I won't engage in gossip, or I need space to focus on my goals. By really defining your boundaries clearly, it gives no room for compromise. It gives no room for people to get you to waver on those boundaries or to justify or tell you why your boundaries are wrong. Clearly defining those boundaries help you really set out on who you want to be as a person for now and the person you want to be in the long run. It helps you find your identity and what you truly believe in. But more importantly, clear, defined boundaries helps you understand who you are and your identity as a person. Once you have really taken the time to write down, study, and really dig deep on how to define clear boundaries, it leads me into step 3. Step 3 is I want you to communicate your boundaries respectfully but firmly. I want you to use statements like, I need to step back from this relationship for my peace. Keep it simple, but don't ever over explain. When you are firm in your communication of boundaries, it lets people know where you kind of draw the line in the sand. It helps clearly define what you want and how you perceive each and every relationship that you want as a part of your life. This could be friendships, coworkers, acquaintances, or even romantic relationships. Even the problem that I had with clearly trying to communicate my boundaries respectfully, I always found myself trying to overindulge or over-explain my boundaries and why I set those boundaries in place. Let's face it though, no one really needs a long, drawn-out explanation of why your boundaries are what they are. Keep your clearly defined boundaries short, sweet, and to the point. For step 4, I want you to stick to them. Your boundaries will only work if you enforce them. Toxic people might test them, but you need to stand firm. Sometimes clearly defined boundaries don't require an explanation. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like they deserve an explanation for your boundaries. However, I will say that if you feel like you do deserve to give someone an explanation or a more clear, defined explanation of your boundaries, that is okay too. The rule of thumb when giving an explanation on boundaries is to make sure that the person you're giving the explanation to really is trying to abide by your boundaries because they love you and respect you. Someone who clearly respects you and understands you and loves the fact that you set your boundaries will only ask for clarity because it better helps align with the clear boundaries that you've set in place. And the last step, which is step 5, which is certainly not least, I want you to pray for wisdom and peace. I want you to let God guide your interactions. Sometimes boundaries are temporary and sometimes permanent, but always necessary. God will show you if you ask Him on the people in your life that you may need to set boundaries with. God may also show you the people in your life that you may need to also just get rid of entirely. And sometimes walking away from a relationship, a friendship, a romantic relationship also is part of setting a boundary. It's a permanent boundary. But if you will let God guide you and direct you into the relationships that you are supposed to be in, He will show you. He will give you clarity, wisdom, and peace. We know things like anxiety, confusion, manipulation, and all of those things are from the enemy. So if you ever have confusion or doubt or anything of that nature, we know that it's not coming from the Lord above. The Lord is always very clear and intentional with His words that He gives you and for the answers that you pray for. If you ever have a doubt about whether or not an answer from your prayers is from the Lord, always take it back to Him. Remember, the Bible tells us to hold our thoughts captive and always test the Spirit. Here is your challenge for this week, Queens. I want you to pick one person or a situation that's draining you. Pray over it. I want you to set a boundary and stick to it. Maybe that's saying no to a late night call, limiting social media interactions, or stepping back from a friendship. I know listening to me now that one person or that one situation is just popping out in your head. And normally, if it's in the forefront of your brain like that, it's the one that you really need to address the most. I want you to write down how you feel before and after. You'll see the difference. Peace is priceless. Protect it. And remember, boundaries aren't mean, they're holy. So that's it for today, queens. Toxic people, bye, girl. Your peace protected, your energy restored. Subscribe, share, and leave a review if this episode spoke to you. And come back tomorrow because we're slaying self doubt with faith. And girl, you don't want to miss this one. Stay bold, stay faithful, and keep slaying queens.